Time to get caught up with Metro Councilwoman Jenn Racca. Jen, good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning.
It's been a minute. How you been?
Great. Busy and good. And
well, so the Metro Council's been kind of all over the place. Y'all got a lot going, or have had a lot going on over the last 2 months or so. There's a couple of different topics I want to cover this morning, but we've got to start with the fairness ordinance. It just, to me, that feels like it's going to be the biggest, has the potential to affect the biggest change in town.
Absolutely. So just to be clear, for those that have not been following, the fairness ordinance, we're calling it Ban the Box 2.0.
Right.
Because we've already banned the box. We banned the box within city parish, meaning that city parish had to change their hiring standards years ago. So
what does the phrase ban the box mean?
So ban the box. Let's just to dumb it down as dumb as possible. If you're coming to apply for a job with city parish, we cannot ask you whether or not you're a convicted felon. However, if we give you a conditional offer of employment, then I can run a background check. And if your felony is related to any type of job you do, let's say that you're a janitor at a school, and obviously that wouldn't be a city job, but let's just say it was, then, and you're a child predator, then we can obviously withdraw the offer for employment. So it's an effort to keep people that are felons, convicted felons, keep them employed without them being discriminated on the front end.
Is there a huge demand for that?
So we've seen nationally, the federal government has banned the box. State government has banned the box. We're seeing that in some states, it helps with fighting recidivism. And obviously, we have a huge issue with recidivism.
Yeah.
And if you were my criminal law client and you were convicted of a felony, the first thing the judge would say is, if you're out on bond or if you're convicted, find and maintain employment. Stay gainfully employed.
Okay.
But if you can't go and find a job, then obviously that's impactful on several levels for you when you're trying to restart your new life.
So now this concept, which you said y'all already did before doing it again, what's the difference between this time and last?
So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and where it became a problem for me is now we're telling everyone that contracts with the city that they have to ban the box.
Okay.
So if you are a construction company that has regularly worked with the city, or a trash pickup company, and I'm not saying that any of those people do not do that currently, but now you're going to be mandated to ban the box and change your hiring practices in order to be able to contract with the city. So
that is the city dictating how a business can run its business.
A private business.
If they want to do business with the city.
Correct. Now, the issue, so it came before the council. Shauna Banks brought the item, and it came in just really quickly before us. There was a major push. Let's get it done. She said that she had been working on this for over a year, but anything that comes before me, I tend to be somewhat skeptical whenever it's being pushed through or shoved through. And there were some questions that I had, which the airport director, that works with the parish attorney's office, he came, the airport lawyer came and talked to us about it, because he deals a lot with federal regulations and standards and laws. And he was very informed on how that works. But what they did not have, and what was a huge red flag to me, is how is it going to be implemented? So let's say Brian and Jen go and bid on something with the city, okay? Neither one of us have effectively banned the box with our company. And sure, we have 90 to 100 days out to figure this out, but they couldn't answer what happens. Do we have to go all the way through the bid process again? Are we both disqualified? Or do we look at it and say the better of the two of us will be able to contract with the city?
Right.
Then the other piece was, and I brought this up, and it went round and round. When Amazon Fulfillment Center came and started building here, there was a huge push for them to use DBEs, so disinvested business entities. However, they said they couldn't do that in every aspect because they had a steel company. There's only one of them like it, and they had to use that steel company, and they obviously weren't a DBE.
Okay.
So my question is, with the ban the box, are we limiting our partnerships? What do we do? What are the exceptions? How do we get around this? And that has not been written yet we passed the ban the box ordinance.
Yeah, the DBE part of this, that you're talking about, we've seen that numerous times where not enough DBEs are getting contracts from the city parish.
Right.
And I asked the follow-up question, how many are applying?
Right.
And that's where I never get an answer. So it's a good question, is if nobody who has banned the box applies for or bids for a contract, does that contract just go unfulfilled?
Yep. And instead of just, in my opinion, it would have been better to incentivize. So let's say, for example, you have banned the box.
Okay.
I still have not. But there are 3 others that have banned the box as well. Those, you 4 move up in the process and I get left behind. So you're incentivized, you're bumped up, but no one is left behind, because there will be. And so to give you a prime example, we have so much talk about the Republic contract. Then we had Viola and Jacobs coming in and bidding on things. But those are the only vendors that are currently bidding on things. Our Republic contract went up, but they have a monopoly on the market. Nobody else offers those services within our city the same way that they do. So we didn't have a whole lot to work from. So you have folks that are currently mad about these contracts that are going through when we have a limited scope of bidders. So I do believe that it is fair. It is a fairness ordinance. I do believe if it's applied properly, that there are some good things that could come of it, especially with the high rates of crime that we have in our city. Mm-hmm. But it hasn't been completely vetted and worked through yet.
And we'll get to that in just a minute. By the way, Chuck, we're going to miss news. Just letting you know right now. We'll get our local news after we're done. We're going to miss ABC. Metro Councilwoman Jenn Racca is our guest. We're going to get to the really quickly part in just a minute, because that seems to be a theme lately. But going back to banning the box, if Company A has banned the box and applies, and Company B has not, and they've put a bid out as well, Company A, can they charge a ton more, and we're going to ignore the lowest bidder because they've complied on this other front? Like, is that going to cost the city a ton more money because it's giving companies an opportunity to up their rate because they've jumped through this hoop?
Potentially. And state bid law would dictate. However, if you've been following, we have a whole new purchasing department and head of purchasing, and those questions couldn't be answered. And they weren't answered very clearly. So I'm sure that state bid law probably has all of those scenarios written out, but they weren't given to us in the council chambers when we're casting this vote. So I asked for it to be deferred, and some of my co-counsel were trying to get it deferred. I think Aaron Moak made the motion for it to be deferred. The motion failed.
Really?
Yes.
All right, so walk me through in real time how this plays out, because this is quick, and we've seen quick before. The biggest example in the last calendar year is the stormwater fee, which was an absolute debacle.
Yes.
So when someone tries to ram something through real fast and someone steps up and says, whoa, 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 I like the idea. You're onto something here, but let's take our time and do this right. How was that received?
It wasn't received. It was still a major push to get it done. Now, everyone said we have 100. I think it was 180 days. Don't quote me on that. We have 180 days to get this written and get it implemented. Mm-hmm. But if you've been working on it for a year, why hasn't our parish attorney's office and the folks that support the council to write these things, why don't they have that written out? Why don't we have someone who's an expert in state bid law to say, this is how it's going to go? Right. Feel free to move forward because we have it. We got it. But there wasn't that reassured nature going forward when we were looking at this one.
So the measure passed, right?
It did.
Done deal. This is where we're at now.
It did.
What are y'all going to have to deal with in the future and I'm not asking you to predict the future, but if you were predicting the future, what do you see being the first battle when someone challenges it?
So our first battle is going to be following up prior to being implemented to make sure that everything, all of the right rules and regulations are in place. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have to sit down and make sure that those things are moving forward, or we're going to have to go back and repeal it or redo it.
The oversight on that, is it just as simple as when filling out a questionnaire for the bid? I mean, it's one line that says, do y'all ask about, priors?
I assume so. And there would be a possible penalty or retraction of the offer if they're not properly banning the box.
I need to get like 3 more minutes out of you because we're going to talk about the massage parlor thing. I'm sorry. It was Rowdy Goday pushed this thing, and it seemed like a good idea. I don't know if it came out with the teeth that he thought it would have.
I don't think so. And again, so where I'm at is with my Republican counterparts, I'm against big government and governmental oversight, especially on businesses and people that are fighting to make it here in our city, to stay here, to have the roots that we need to keep our economy growing. And I'm just not overly excited about having more government in our businesses and in our homes. And you'll see the council, even the Republican folks, are writing these feel-good ordinances and expanding the overreach, but we have total and complete lack of enforcement. We can write as many pretty words as we want in the book, but if we're not having the proper enforcement, then what's the point? What's the point?
The impetus behind the bill was to curtail or curb somewhat human trafficking.
Right. And it was very emotional. It was very emotional.
Yeah.
So but from what we learned in council chambers, the police officers that are working on these cases are doing their job. There were 27 arrests. Mm-hmm. There were people that were saved. So why are we coming in? And I guess that, and I won't speak for Mr. Goday, but I assume that what they're saying is we can assist, we can help. Yeah. But what you see is the good folks are punished for the bad. So now we have regulatory standards in place where the people that have been operating in a fair and good fashion are now going to be regulated even more. They're going to have more fees implemented for the folks that are doing the bad stuff. And let me tell you, the bad folks don't come and pay their fees and get their licenses like they're supposed to. Well,
would that leave room for a window for the good folks to apply for some kind of license or waiver or whatever the case might be?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I can't tell you.
Okay. And the follow-up there would be specifically, because this was talking about massage parlors, one of the rules was shutting down from like 10:30 p.m. till whenever. Are there a whole lot that are in that business at that time?
So let's think about it. I'm not going to use specific lanes, so I'll say Bumblebee. Bumblebee serves a certain kind of clientele, okay? Yes. So Bumblebee is going to have folks that come in that can drop $300 on a massage, okay? Then let's say Massage Envious. They're going to have a different type of clientele. Yeah. Maybe the folks that are working the 3 to 11 shift at a gas station that has maybe something going on in their back that, they need a chiropractor, whatever they may need, but Massage Envious can help them out. Okay. Well, then we have Happy Endings. That place right there is operating on different hours with a different clientele.
On different hours, though?
On different hours.
Right.
But there are some that are the in-between that are still servicing that crowd that comes in. They work a long shift at Walmart. They go the next morning, they work their long shift at a supermarket, and then they don't have the same hours that those other folks have. So they're going in to get treated at certain times. But then you have your happy ending crowd, and that's just a whole different. So there are different crowds. There are different socioeconomic areas where people are going to get their massages, but that doesn't mean they're all bad. Right. It really doesn't. Okay. We have one group that's ruining it for the rest of them. Now we had folks reach out to us, and it's usually your mom and pop business, your one single person owner, that they do operate between 10 and midnight to get that certain crowd, and then they shut down, or they start at 4 a.m. in the morning. And they were very vocal about, hey, this is a problem for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're pulling shift work at 6 a.m., then maybe you might need something to, loosen the back up before, loosen your back. Loosen your back. Sorry. Before you go into work. I understand that. So. Right.
So it's just an interesting concept. I hope it works out. And if
weird to make that pitch because it's
yes.
How do you say like I'm not necessarily in favor of this new set of rules while at the same time saying you're not pro happy ending crowd?
Right. So I don't know. And the council members, as serious as they all are, there were some cut eyes between all of us. Like, don't you say it. Don't you say it. Don't turn your microphone on.
There are very few ways to get to from the beginning of their argument to the end,
Right.
without using any double entendre at all.
Absolutely. But again, if this ordinance saves one child,
No, absolutely.
You know, it's worth every vote. It's worth the fees. It's worth the fines. It's just, when do we stop pushing things on our good business owners that are following the law, that are doing what they're supposed to, and that are doing everything they can to survive in this economy?
Is there room to go back and work out some kind of middle ground?
Potentially. I guess we need to see what the effects are moving forward. And, you know, ultimately, who's going to vote against it? When
Exactly.
You had a council person speaking the voice of the children and, you know, just help me and all this kind of stuff. So it was very emotional. But sometimes I think we have to remove ourselves from that emotion and see what the unintended consequences of our actions are, especially when we have other agencies that are enforcing the laws as they're written, the criminal laws as they're written.
She is Metro Councilwoman Jenn Racca. Been too long. It's my fault. When the session's going on, I tend to just dial in. It has been too long, so let's get you back on in the very near future, because there's a lot more ground to cover.